when we go through these trade rooms, we'll be talking about, regular NBA, but we'll also touch on a bit of fantasy stuff as well. So whether you're an NBA listener or if you play fantasy, these will all be relevant to you. So the first one we want to touch on is one of those ones that we think is going to be pretty legit and I expect to go down fairly soon. And we're going to touch on Andre Drummond. Now, he's been one of those players that looks like he is going to sit or at least benched or I don't know until he's either traded, bought out. I don't know what's going on here, but it looks like Jarrett Allen's going to be the permanent starter for that team now, at least until they trade. Maybe they get another centre back, but for now, he's the starter. I'll throw it over to you, Cal. What are your thoughts on Andre Drummond? Do you think, do you know any teams that might be interested? Where do you think he's going to end up eventually?
There's a couple of teams that do need a big man. So there could be some teams that are interested. There's just a lot of kind of negative value, I guess, right now for Andre Drummond. He has been having a reasonable season, though. I'll give him that. But there's always the knock against, he plays bad team defense. And even he's shooting around the basket for a big man is pretty bad. Let's be honest. It's like near 50%, which for a big man, it's not good. So there's a lot of question marks. There's a reason that the Detroit Pistons only got 1 second-round pick for him.
They
the
literally
Cavs
gave him away. Just literally just get off the team.
Exactly. They honestly just didn't want to pay that player option that he's obviously accepted for this season. And that's why he's in the final year of his contract. So to that degree, it makes him more tradable than he was last season, just because he had that player option. So because he's expiring, definitely that to some degree makes him, a bit more of a trade chip. But it's hard to say. It's hard to say it could go. I noticed, I think you've listed a couple of teams. So who do you reckon is the front runner?
Look, from what I've heard at the rumblings around the NBA and Twitter, it seemed to me like the Raptors were the biggest contender. That was the first thing that came out. Although I've heard a few more things since then. I've heard lots of teams. To be honest, there's a lot of teams flying around. In this podcast, we're going to go through a lot of players who are on the trade table, and the biggest theme from all these trades that I can gather is it seems there's a lot of big men available. That's the thing that's sort of making this all a little bit confusing. There's a lot of centers. There's a lot of big men that are not really wanted, even sort of like bigger power forwards. So perhaps some of these teams that maybe are in the market for a center might not want to trade for Drummond. Maybe they want to wait to see if they can get him from a buyout market. So maybe that's why the trigger has been pulled yet. But I think the Raptors so far has been the leading rumor mill, which obviously from a fantasy point of view for someone like Chris Boucher would be absolutely devastating and probably ruin his fantasy value unless, even if he's traded back over Jarrett Allen, it'd just be bad news for him unless he's finding himself on a third party. So from a fantasy point of view, that would not be good news. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they could still play together if that did happen. Like Boucher can stretch the court, so you can still play them together. His blocks would definitely go down there. That'd be, I guess, maybe one hit because you have Drummond clogging the paint a little bit more. But I think Raptors would be the front runners. They need a big man. Aaron Baines hasn't worked out. He's too old. He gets injured too much. Boucher is a great per minute guy, but in certain matchups, he's probably not quite there. That's why Nick Nurse doesn't trust in him as much.
Nick Nurse doesn't want to play him. So it seems like the writing's on the wall there. So that's, and it's been like that all season.
Exactly. And let's say the Raptors do it. What would their ceiling be if they push for a trade there?
I don't know. I've never been the biggest fan. You're talking about like seeding. Yeah. Look, like they've caught up a bit of ground. I think they'd still be able to get like to a 6th or 7th seed. I think they're kind of on that pace already anyway. So I don't know if it increases their ceiling too much. I kind of see Drummond as like 26 minutes per night kind of guy. So I don't see him as that like big 30 plus 32 minute a night center anymore. So I don't know if he's going to push their ceiling too high. It definitely is a good matchup thing that they can throw out there, a big body that they don't really have at the moment. So I think it helps them. But I don't know. I don't think it's the big needle mover that you might think.
Here's one team that have a big trade exception and probably do need a big man in the Celtics. Your Celtics.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking we're going to name the Celtics a fair few times on this pod because they come up in a lot of rumors. And I have been seeing that as well in terms of like also the buyout market as well. So I'm not sure if, I don't know, Andre Drummond. I think he's more likely than this next guy to be traded than bought out. But look, as the Celtics, I think we can land a bigger fish than Andre Drummond. Personally, I would not. I don't know. Who are we trading to get him? Like, what are we giving up?
Well, you've got the big trade exception. So
Yeah.
you
So it doesn't have
I
to be
don't
a big
think
contract.
exactly. So you could throw someone smaller, maybe like a, I don't know, Robert
Robert
Williams,
Williams. Yeah.
as some kind of upside, bring in Drummond, maybe whatever else makes the cash work. Um,
What do you think Cleveland wants though? Because they're pretty deep at the forward position and center position. Like they've got some guys there. Like what are they looking for? Are they looking for like I would have thought they're looking for like a wing kind of player, like
I would have
or,
thought a
or
wing
maybe
as well.
yeah, or maybe just draft assets. Like even if it's just a I don't know, they got a couple. They gave up the second round pick or whatever. Maybe they just want that back. I don't know. Um,
They could use, I guess, a second. Obviously, they can upgrade Jared Allen to the starting position, and then
yeah,
they get a backup center plus another asset, whether that's like a even if it's like a second, couple seconds. If they got like a late round first, I'm sure they pull
yeah,
the trigger.
yeah. Okay. See, yeah. Look, if all we had to give up was yeah a Robert Williams for Drummond, I don't know between
And then
him.
maybe throw in your second as well, throw a second round draft pick in.
I wouldn't hate it. I think it gives us a bit more versatility, and it is, but we've got Tristan Thompson there as well, who kind of does the same thing that Drummond does anyway, and is probably a better vertical spacer. Maybe Drummond scores a little bit more efficiently, but even then, I don't really want him to be the source of our points for us to be successful. So yeah, like I said, I think the Celtics we should be looking at getting someone a bit more valuable and a bit more of a needle mover than Andre Drummond personally. And I don't think that we will. I honestly don't think that we're going to be looking at Andre Drummond. And I think that's just people sort of lumping the Celtics in there because like, oh, they need a big man. We always seem to come up when centers are on the trade block. So I'm less inclined to think that that's going to happen.